Hey, Kirby Jambon back avec vous autres pour un autre leçon du français louisianais. Yes, we're back with another Louisiana French lesson today. Comment ça va? Ça se plume? Ça c'est bon. Today we're going to talk about terms that are found in both Louisiana French and in International French or Standard French, but the terms have different meanings, pretty much some ways completely different. Sometimes we think the two varieties of French, especially here in South Louisiana, folks will say, Cajun French, Louisiana French, it's so different than International French, it's very hard to communicate. Well, it may be for a few folks who don't have a lot of experience with different varieties of French, but in general, my experience has been that most folks, once they sit down and, take time to discuss with other folks, with other French speakers, they tend to understand each other. There are some differences, of course. That's why it's a variety of French. I know in English there are differences as well. I'm someone who likes to watch programs on the BBC, and sometimes I put on the subtitles because there are some terms that are different. And most American English speakers know, that well, when they're referring to a lift in Britain, they're referring to an elevator, or a flat is an apartment, or the bins or the garbage cans. These are words that we find in both languages, but they have a different meaning. And the same thing is true in Louisiana French. There are some words that are found in both languages, but that have different meanings. And so today, what we're going to be doing is we're going to be talking about some of these terms. Now, the point I must always make is that the fact that Louisiana French is French. It is a variety of French, just as Québécois French in Quebec is a variety of French. The French spoken in the français acadien de Nouveau-Brunswick or de Nouvelle-Écosse, Nova Scotia and New Brunswick French are different varieties of French. The French spoken in the Caribbean, in Africa, in Belgium. French spoken in different parts of France is different. And so it's a variety of French. There are differences. And so the differences reflect our realities. But the majority of each variety of French is very much the same. And so when I point out the differences, it's just to point out that these differences are actually more exceptions to the rules. There's questions of pronunciation, that are different. There are questions of a little bit of syntax and grammar that are different. But in general, the languages, it's still the same language. It's still the French language, just as the English language is the same. It changes throughout the world, but it is still the same. It is still English. We don't say, hey, look, they're not speaking English. They're just speaking a different type of English, different variety of English. We like to use the terms dialects or, the patois, different things like that to describe different varieties. So today we're going to talk about a few just specific nouns, specific verbs, and maybe an adjective or an adverb or two that are found in both languages, but in general have a lot of different meanings. For example, let's start with the word casse-tête. Casse-tête. Casse-tête is like two words together. Casse from to break, casser, and then tête, the head. Now, International French and casse-tête refers to a puzzle. Something that you kind of would break your head trying to figure out. A casse-tête in Louisiana French refers to something that can literally break your head, which is a hatchet. Yeah, it refers to a hatchet. So it's one of those terms you would learn to say, okay, well, that's a little different. I won't use that in the same way. Huh? Let's try another one. Passe-partout. Passe-partout. Now, those of us from the Lafayette area know passe-partout probably. If you don't speak French, you think passe-partout is just the name of that morning TV show on one of the television networks. But passe-partout is a Louisiana French word and an International French word. In International French, it refers to passe-partout refers to a skeleton key. A key, a master key that could get you in. Passe meaning to pass or to go. Partout, everywhere. So that skeleton helps you to go everywhere. In Louisiana French, it typically means a cross-cut saw, because ça passe partout. It goes here and there. It goes here and there. It's a passe-partout is a cross-cut saw. Couloir, couloir, couloir. Internationally, couloir refers to a hallway. And because the word comes from the word couler, which means to flow. So in a hallway, you would flow, the traffic would flow through a hallway. In Louisiana French, a couloir refers to a colander or a strainer, because I just finished using that to strain some black-eyed peas that my lovely wife is preparing for me today. And I use it to strain it, and I use that couloir, to strain, allow the water to flow out, a couloir. I believe internationally they call that a passoire, allows water to passer, to pass. And for us, for a hallway, we wouldn't say un couloir. We would say either a corridor, or we might use the English word hallway. But corridor is used internationally as well. So, all right. So our next word for today we're going to talk about is the word couverture. Couverture. Couverture refers to, internationally, couverture comes from the word couvrir, the verb couvrir, the past tense couvert, covered. And couverture, international French, typically refers to a cover, a blanket, like a bed blanket, a bed covering, something you would cover yourself with, and couverture de lit. In Louisiana French, more often than not, and couverture refers to a roof, the covering of a house, and couverture, sur la couverture de la house. Now, we also use the international French word le toit, T-O-I-T, in certain senses. You know, mets-toi sur le toit, sous le toit, excuse me. Well, you can put sur le toit, it would be a different sense, but to put yourself under a covering, under a roof of some sort. But we more often than not use the term couverture. The third word we're going to talk about is the word capot, C-A-P-O-T. Capot is related to cap and cape and that idea, so it's kind of, we're keeping that kind of something that covers idea. And capot internationally is more often to describe the hood of a car. Okay, the hood of a car is called a capot. In Louisiana French, a capot refers to a coat, any type of coat. Internationally, we call it un manteau, but any type of coat, we simply call it a capot. There's a few nouns, so there's a few nouns that are different. Again, there are a lot of other nouns that are different, but you might not find them in both languages. But these are some words that you find in both languages, but they have different meanings. Let's talk a little bit about a few different words. Another noun that we have, and it's related to a verb that we have as well. You have the verb traiter and the noun traiteur. Un traiteur, un traiteur, un traité, un traiteur or une traiteuse. And you have the verb traiter, which means to treat, the verb meaning to treat. So un traiteur and traiteuse means someone who is going to treat you to heal an ailment you might have. It typically refers to traditional folk healings, those who would use either some types of traditional medicine, some herbs, or usually with a lot of prayers, and some might just only use prayers, but it was a traditional folk healer. And traiter, so it's meaning to treat. But un traiteur in France, from what I understand, means a caterer, which in a sense is treating you to some food in a sense. So you can see the relationship of treating in that sense. Another one's a very common word. It comes from, and this one's comes from old variety of French and Acadian French as well. It's espérer. Espère, who you hear more often used in its present tense form. Espérer, meaning to, internationally, which means to wait. But internationally it would mean to hope, but in Louisiana French it means to wait. Espère-moi, to wait. Okay, so we would typically not use espérer, meaning to hope. We would actually use the word souhaiter, which also means to wish, more often to mean to hope. Another one comes more often from the sound. It has to do with a sound. This is the word attendre. Attendre, internationally attendre. And attendre, typically for Louisiana French speakers, we use attendre to mean to wait. Where internationally, attendre would mean to hear. Now, the reason for this is mostly because of a pronunciation idea that comes from pronunciation. In Louisiana French, in French you have these sounds. You have on and un. Okay, on and un. On is spelled with O-N, on with E-N or A-N, or A-M or A-N as well. And in Louisiana French, some folks will pronounce the un, some folks will pronounce the un as an on, and some folks will pronounce the un as an a. So it goes from those two different. So entendre becomes attendre for many Louisiana French speakers. Although there are a few that might say entendre. I think I was hearing one time, I was speaking to my parents once, and they mentioned, le monde de la rose, ça dit entendre. I think he was talking to folks from La Rose and Lafourche Parish. They said entendre rather than attendre. But we typically use the word attendre for to hear, and the word and we use espérer to wait, while attendre internationally refers to wait. Another word I like to talk about is the word rôder. Rôder internationally has a few different meanings. It can mean to prowl. It can mean to break in, take it easy with a new car. But For us, rôder refers to simply to riding around aimlessly, with no purpose, to go, just to, like I remember when I asked my parents, and my grandparents, when hey, tu veux aller rôder? You want to go rôder? And it meant, rôder didn't mean a particular place that you had to go. They might have an idea, but it's just, we're just going ride. We're going ride around. Rôder. And again, in an international sense, it has that sense that prowl has that similar sense there to prowl, but it's more of a kind of like a suspicious of your intent when you're doing it there. For us, not necessarily. Could be, but not necessarily. Another one is interesting. One is jongler. Jongler internationally refers to juggling, to juggle. And international French, and in Louisiana French, it refers to one of the words we use to mean to think. We have penser and jongler. And jongler is used and if you think about it, it's kind of like that idea of juggling your thoughts in a sense. It's to reflect, to ruminate upon something. If you, typically if you want your sweetheart, the one who, significant other, you want them to think about you, you would use the word jongler rather than penser. And so you want them really to kind of mull over in your mind who you are, or about you, I should say. Let's talk about a couple of adjectives we have here. The first one is pronounced a little different in international French. The word international is pronounced drôle. We pronounce it drôle. Now, both in a sense mean funny. However, and internationally they can mean both haha funny and the kind of the strange funny. However, in Louisiana French, it specifically means the bizarre, the strange. It's not a compliment to tell someone, hey, toi t'es drôle. Ça, c'est pas un compliment, ça. Non, pas du tout. Okay? Internationally, oh, tu es drôle. Ouais, ça c'est okay. You're funny. Yeah, not to us Cajuns and Creoles and French Louisiana speakers. No, fais pas ça. Okay? And then another word is vaillant. And vaillant internationally can refer to come valiant and gallant and and brave and things like that internationally. But vaillant in Louisiana French has two meanings. In the central southwestern parts of the states, vaillant typically means nice. He's a nice person. You're a nice person. Vaillant, Or ça c'est une vaillante maison. That's a nice house, Now, when you look at it, if you describe a person, you're talking about their ability to be friendly. When you're talking about a house, you're talking about its appearance. And in some parts of the state in the southeast, vaillant specifically refers to nice looking in appearance. Vaillant. But neither one of them have to deal with being brave or gallant. They don't have those meanings as well. And then let's talk about one adverb to close this little segment. That word is doucement. Doucement. Now, doucement comes from the word douce. And douce has a few different meanings. It can mean sweet. It can mean mild. It can mean soft. And so doucement, when you have the ment, makes it an adverb, becomes, softly, sweetly, mildly, However, doucement for us most of the time means slowly or slow. I can recall a story of my speaking of this idea between the differences. My late uncle, there were some French tourists, friends from France, tourists that were back in Lafourche Parish, and my uncle had a little seafood shop and a little seafood business, and they were stopping to talk to him, and he realized they were from France, and he said, okay. And he told the guy, he said, boom, okay. He said, mais si tu parles doucement, on va se comprendre, okay? And he was telling him, if you speak slowly, we're going to understand, because he knew he'd understand if you just kind of spoke slowly, okay? I think the person was the French person didn't quite get it, because for them doucement means you have to speak softly, but I think eventually they understood. So mais si tu parles doucement, si tu parles dur et fort comme ça, be proud of your Louisiana French heritage. Be proud of your Louisiana French language. Be proud of who you are, whoever you are. Let's be proud this month, okay? Hey, vous autres, il faut être fier, okay? Fier d'être Cajun, fier d'être créole, fier d'être n'importe qui que t'es, okay? Ça, c'est important. Be proud of who you are. And of course, as always, soignez vous autres and soignez les autres. On va se voir à la prochaine, okay? Au revoir. Bye-bye. Y'all take care.